Welcome back to the Gunn Show, my friends. This is the VIP edition. Yes, we're bringing people to Boca Raton, Florida. We are in the Podcast Junkies studio, and we're always having a good time. I have a very special guest today, but before we get to that, just like always, I'd like to welcome every single one of you, and for someone who might be new, for the dozens or hundreds that might be new as this continues to get more and more popular. If you showed up here to see muscles, I don't have any of those. If you showed up here to see weapons, I don't have any of those either. We might talk about both of those. My guest has potentially both of those. I don't know. We'll ask him. But this is about humanizing manufacturing. It is about connecting with an audience, with the people that make everything around us, whether it be on the sales side or the creation side or the design side, the engineering side, whatever it might be. Everything around you guys and gals out there is made in manufacturing, except humans, nature, and some of the, like the sun stuff, right? Wind, water. But even that, I think I'm seeing clones at this point. We might be making humans at this point, but that's not today's topic. So I just want to thank you all for being here. That's what the Gunn Show is about. I also want to thank our sponsors. The AMT team, IMTS is coming. We're excited about 2024. And the EBITDA Growth Systems team, thank you for doing the consulting work that you're doing to help shops thrive as we reshore manufacturing and bring it back to where we want it to be. So thank you both for being sponsors of the Gunn Show VIP edition. Welcome back to the Gunn Show, my friends. This is the VIP edition. With no further ado, I do have a great friend on here today. He goes by the name of Superstar Rob. No, I just made that up. His name is Don Robbins. He is a superstar. He is the direct sales account manager at Mazak USA. But don't let that fool you. We both kind of jumped on the dark side, but he has over 20 years of machining experience. He was also in the U.S. Navy in 1994 and went to Mount Vernon Nazarene University, where he majored in business administration, management, and operations. Don, thank you so much for joining me on the Gunn Show, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, coming from the Navy, being in a machining a long time, who knows the kind of things that could pop up. So sometimes I like to throw it out there to strike the curiosity of the audience, right?
Right. No, I would too. Absolutely.
So what we love to do on this show, Don, and if you've listened before, you probably already know this, you have a unique story, and we love to hear about the journeys of everyone, because there's a whole lot of folks out there, much like myself when I was in high school, I didn't have a clue what manufacturing was. And when I did accidentally fall into it, I thought, well, what the heck is this? I have no education on this. What do I do next? And there are some people who are born into it. They're third generation, fourth generation. Their great-great-grandparents are legacies in the industry, and they kind of already know, right? Yep. But we're speaking to everyone, and you have the type of journey that people want to hear about. Would you mind sharing it?
No, that's, not a problem. So, I am a multi-generational manufacturing person, but that was not my intention by any means. I don't think anybody in high school really has that goal of saying, hey, this is what I want to get into. Some people do, don't get me wrong. They're machining out in their garage with their dad, making race car parts. That is the life that they're going to go into. So, not knowing your background extensively around that time frame, for me, high school, I struggled. I struggled. Math was always difficult for me, maybe just the way they taught it, because eventually I learned math very well and I love it. But I'll get into that a little bit. But, so getting out of high school, there was really no plans for me. I wasn't going to college. There was no way I was going to college. So, the Navy really intrigued me, the ability to get away from home, go to different countries, do different jobs, so I enlisted. Got lucky. I got a great job. I was a torpedo man's mate. So went to school, boot camp first, obviously, and then A school. Got assigned to a base up in Washington State, where all I did was test torpedoes, which was a great job.
No kidding.
Did that for 4 years. Met my wife in Vancouver Island, and got married. Went back to Mount Vernon, Ohio, where I'm from, with no plan at all. Sorry, and so I'm sitting there after a couple of weeks, and I remember my dad taking me out to the car and kind of chewing me out. I was like, you need a job, man. You got a wife, you got a kid coming.
Maybe that's a good idea at this point.
So you need to have a plan. And, there really wasn't, where I'm from, there really wasn't a lot of possibilities of, career-wise, other than really two companies. One was Cooper Cameron, which eventually became Rolls-Royce, and that's where my dad worked. And then there was another company called Aerial Corporation. So, you know, in talking with my dad and him being a journeyman assembler for Rolls for 30-something years, you know, he made the recommendation, go to Aerial. You know, I think that's a better plan for you long term. So I did, you know, so I applied. They love military people. They love veterans. It didn't matter what I did. And I was hired pretty much on the spot. I was hired for what they call a Weissman.
Okay, and I know you're going to go into what a Weissman is a little bit because it's a curious word.
It's a curious word. You're deburring parts is what you're doing.
Well, they sure made that fancy because I
Yeah.
deburred parts too. And I just was called, hey, guy, deburr these parts.
Yeah, terrible. These are big parts, big cylinder bodies that go on natural gas compressors. They come off the machine, finished. So what you're doing as a Weissman is you're going in, you're deburring all the parts, you're cleaning out the threaded holes, you're cleaning sand out from inside the casting. You know, they take an hour to 2 hours a piece. You're standing up for 12 hours a day. You're flipping these parts, you're rotating them. And I did that for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And as I'm standing there for 12 hours a day, you got music on, you're getting stuff in your eyes all the time, even with safety glasses. I think I've had my eyes cleaned out easily 15 to 20 times at a hospital.
You're really selling this machining thing right now.
Well, that's old school, right? That's old school. So I'm looking over, and at the same time as I'm doing all this, I see this guy. He's at this machine. You know, he's getting up about every hour to change a part out. He's sitting down, having a cup of coffee.
What a luxurious life.
Reading the newspaper, and I'm thinking, man, I want that job.
Right?
You know, so I don't want this job. So, you know, part of what Aerial does is development, you know, because it's hard to find machinists. It was 20 years ago. You know, it's harder now, but, you know, so part of that is taking their current employees, people that are in entry-level positions, and developing them into other roles, more technical roles, be it as machinist, assembler, maintenance, whatever you decide you want to do. So with that being said, they sent me to school. They paid for it. They sent me to school during my shift. I got paid, you know, for everything. And so I went to just a regular tech school down the road and took machining. And that's when I kind of got into machining. Started off, you know, on all the manuals, the Blanchard grinders, the Clausing drill presses, the, you know, Bullard VTLs, all of them, you know, and learning to run manual machines. I did that for a couple of years, and then I got into CNC, Mazak being my first CNC.
Nice.
Even though they had 400 plus machines, and they still do, and half of them were Mazaks. Mazak just happened to be the first one I ever ran. Learned how to do that, and then, you know, as my time there, I was there for 16 years. As it progressed, I learned, you know, the programming, the G-code programming, macro programming, Mazatrol programming through, you know, with Mazaks, and learned how to be a pretty decent machinist. Then, you know, I kind of got a little bit bored. I was like, yeah, all right. So I had a desire to get into leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my journey away from machining to this next leg, if you will. Because in the machining world, there's different legs that you can follow.
So many, actually.
So
And I
many.
think people outside the industry don't realize that, but you're right. It's really sprouts like tree branches in the directions people can go.
It can. There's really, in my opinion, there's 3 main ones, maybe 4. And I'll talk about that.
Sure. You know, there's so much of this conversation I'm ready to dissect, but,
Yeah.
but I'm enjoying this story so much that I can't do it just yet. But
We'll get
from the
there.
math side of things to the
Yeah,
military side of things, it's just what a fascinating journey.
Well, I'll jump into the math. So, you
No,
know.
no, keep going with the story,
I'm going
please.
to. It's going to
Okay.
be part of the story. So as the machining part of it, so as you're getting into macro programming, you're getting to G-code, a lot of, and I'll kind of be specific with macro programming, when you're running these, you know, 20, 30, 40 different parts that are all the same, but they're families of parts, and you want to create one program and use variables, you know, every part has different angles depending on the outside diameter to the lower diameter, and you're cutting that angle. It can change that angle, and you start getting into trig, and you start saying, okay, I've got to create a macro where my trig works for all 40 parts if they're all different with their angle, but I only want to be able to put in 2 variables.
Otherwise, we have 10,000 lines of code that are unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So as you try to minimize and make efficient programs, those are things that I learned. And I slowly started to realize that, man, I kind of like math. I'm actually not bad at it.
Funny how that worked out, isn't it?
Yeah, and so even though in high school math was terrible, I made it to like algebra 1, I think, in my senior year. That's just
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
Here I am, 6, 7 years later, actually applying, trig and algebra and geometry to just my everyday work environment, and it was easy for me, and I enjoyed it. Math became fun for me, and it's fun for me today still, So I got into leadership, the whole route you can go, especially in a big company. You start off as like a team leader, and then maybe a group leader, and then you become a supervisor and then manager. So at that time, I was a supervisor for a couple years. I worked the worst shift there was, which was Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. It worked for me and my family though. And the reason is because I worked those nights. I could be home all summer with my boys and take them to, baseball games and football games, and my wife didn't have to worry about anything. I made dinner during the week, and then I worked on the weekends. So that worked out.
Are you a chef too?
I do like to cook. I'm not a chef.
We'll get into that a little bit later as well, right?
Not really.
I don't want to derail you.
If I have recipes, I can make it, but I don't. I've gotten to a point now where I just don't like cooking. I'd rather just not cook. But I can do it, though. I can do it.
This is Shop Rescue.
Hello, I'm Eric Goglitz, VP of Sales with AeroX Technologies. We're a manufacturer of mist collectors. What made me really excited about this project is the fact that mist collection isn't always looked at as a product that makes you money. We wanted to participate and support the shop because that's not a product that they may go out and buy, having financial hardships possibly, and we want to give them that ability to have a clean, safe work environment. So I really hope this show opens eyes of the owners of some of these other shops that may be struggling, to show them that there is a way to do this correctly. Instead of trying to do the bare minimum for the lowest cost possible, you can bring up your quality and charge the price for it that you need to.
Fair play.
Yeah. So there came this point in time where I felt like, my dad worked for the same company for years. My grandfather retired from GM. My uncle retired from GM. Everybody that worked at this company was there their whole lives. I didn't want that. I felt like there was always something more out there. And, I love Ohio, but that just wasn't the right place for me to be. And I love the sunshine. I love the beach. Me and my wife vacationed frequently to Myrtle Beach. That's where everybody in Ohio goes.
That's true.
Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
And, I remember one day sitting on the beach and saying, what are we doing? Why are we vacationing somewhere? Why don't we just move somewhere that we love? Why do that? Yeah. So, and she agreed, which is kind of funny.
Don, you started this whole conversation off with, I think we have a few things in common. I don't know if there's things we don't have in common just yet, actually.
All right, well, let me keep going then.
Yes, please.
So my wife coached gymnastics for many years. She was the director of the gym. She's from Czechoslovakia, by the way. And so she grew up doing gymnastics. But she coached gymnastics for many years. She was the director of the gym, the local gym. And so we traveled a lot with her gymnastics, which was fun. I really enjoyed it. I was designated as the videographer, so I had to film all the events and put them together for her YouTube pages and stuff. But we visited Savannah, Georgia, here for their national championship.
Beautiful city.
It is wonderful. We were there for probably 2 days, and I was already calling local shops for interviews.
Were you really?
Absolutely. I had an interview that week. He's like, yeah, come on in, man. Let's talk. That one happened to not work out, but we had already made the decision before we left that week that we're moving to Savannah, Georgia. Less than 6 months later, we were packing our bags and we were leaving for Savannah. My wife had a great job with the county commissioners. My sons were in high school. Okay, they weren't in elementary. This was a big change for them. They went to the same school their whole lives. Okay, so now they have to make a change in high school. My son was a senior, by the way, my oldest.
Wow.
I quit my job of 16 years, which was a wonderful place. Aerial Corporation is a great place to work. I was just ready to make a change. I've got nothing negative to say about Aerial. The owners are magnificent. But anyways, we'll keep going here. So we made the change. So I took a job. I won't say the name of the company because I did not like this company. But I took a job with an aerospace company. And the reason I didn't like it is because it was owned by a holding company, and they changed names 5 times, and I had 5 different plant managers in 4 years. And I came from a family-owned company, a large family-owned company. So the dynamics of a family-owned company versus a publicly traded company and the way they worked their business,
Big
and how
difference.
they viewed employees was huge for me. And I just didn't, I didn't like how things were done, how fast people were let go, how fast, something looked like it may be bad, we're just going to fire everybody. It just wasn't when you're trying to support yourself, it just wasn't a good environment for me at the time. So after about 4 years, so I was a supervisor there in night shift. I moved into a manager position eventually during the day. I decided to make a change, and so I was looking in Florida. I wanted to be in Florida. It's just a great state. We won't get into that, but it's just a great state. And really, number one was the weather, and the beaches and the palm trees everywhere. And really, it sounds simplistic and idiotic, but that was really kind of a driving force, was our quality of life as we continue to get older. Right?
That doesn't sound idiotic at all. Simplistic maybe, but I'm equally as simplistic when it comes to that mindset.
Yeah, okay, perfect then. So I ended up finding a great job at Arthrex down in Naples, and was there as a supervisor on night shift again. I had to go back to nights, start over again, and it was a great job again. Arthrex is a good place. One of the largest employers in the town of Naples. Not a lot of manufacturing in Naples, but there's more than what most people think. But this is by far the largest, and they make medical devices, 10,000 plus different devices. It's pretty amazing. Again, a family-owned company. So how they treat their employees was magnificent. Their benefits are just crazy. So I was there about a year, just loving life. And I got a call, from a friend of mine at Mazak one night, and said, "Hey, Don, we want to have dinner with you in Orlando." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. What's going on?" He goes, "Just come." So I'm not going to get into the details because Mazak is my current employer, and I'm not going to say any names or anything, but that turned out to be an offer for a position as a direct sales. So I made the decision. It was a long conversation with my wife. Do I leave this very steady position with a great company to go into a sales position, which at that time, I was very adamant to everybody that I am not a salesman. I'm a machinist, I am a supervisor, I'm a manager. That's what I did. My current boss, Perry Leonore, who is fantastic, by the way, he's been in sales his whole life and with Mazak for many years, said something to me that I think I'll never forget. And I still try to remember that to this day. He's like, "Don," he goes, "everybody's a salesman every day of your life. When you're talking to your wife, when you're talking to your kids, you're always selling something. Maybe not for monetary, but for an answer or for a favor or
Some
for
sort
them
of
to
result.
do some result."
Yeah.
That is sales, and everybody does it. And I thought, he's right, and I love to talk. You'll probably realize this.
You're not an introvert, I can tell.
No, absolutely not. And I think he saw that with me when he first met me because it was a very quick decision for him. So the best decision I made in my life, and I enjoy the company I work for. Again, Mazak, as big as we are, is still a family company. They have amazing values. They make amazing machines, and I am very thankful for what I do. I get to meet a lot of great people. And I get to walk into amazing shops every day. I see something different every day, and it still surprises me. And so I'm like I said, I'm very thankful, and I'm here today because of what I do with Mazak. So that's kind of a 10-minute, timeline for my journey right now. So
very enjoyable journey. I appreciate you sharing that. There's, again, going back to the dissection part, there are so many similarities that you and I have from the not doing great at math, but now loving math and applying it in a practical sense instead of just on a chalkboard to wanting to be somewhere warmer and having a lifestyle that's enjoyable instead of waiting until retirement, to the part of switching from the manufacturing side of things to the sales side of things and questioning it first and then loving it later. There's just step after step. You and I have a lot of mirrored similarities. One thing I want to talk about, because a lot of our audience is in the manufacturing world and the machining side of things, is the stability that machining gives that we have both felt. But then I would use the word courage, but maybe there isn't so much because sometimes it just makes sense. But I'm going to use it anyway. The courage it takes to step away from our comfort zone of knowing something so well to move into sales, which from the manufacturing side of things, we call it, the dark side, right? To throw a Star Wars reference in there, but the dark side, but it's really not. What has that transition been for you going from one to the other? Because I know, as we talked about, manufacturing and engineering branches out like trees. We want an audience to also know when you hear one thing, it's not that for the rest of your life. There's so many options. So would you mind elaborating on that bit a bit more?
So, the transition, I'm 5 years now that I've been in sales, and it's still a learning process because you got to get away from, you still want to have a technical mindset. You still want to, express what you think is the better way of doing things sometimes. But you got to be careful because sometimes people don't want to hear that. They know what's best for them, and I get that. I completely understand that. So, being a manager, having engineers working for me in Savannah and guiding them at times on how I wanted things done, same thing in Ohio. It's tough to transition from trying to be a problem solver in that, hey, listen, I would run it this way and do it this way and take the, I can't do that as much. I still do it, and it's an asset, in my opinion, when somebody in sales, especially machine tool sales, has a machining background. It's not necessary. It is 100% not necessary, but it does help in some circumstances. And so being able to disconnect from that manager, if you will, or supervisor or machinist, disconnecting from that role, which I've done most of my life, and being more of a salesperson and guiding them into what they're asking for. That's been a tough one for me. And sometimes my boss has got to knock me down a few times and say, hey, stop doing it. Right. So, and some of my customers that are going to watch this are going to laugh because they know exactly what I'm talking about. But, and then the whole, being in sales, I work from home, obviously. I'm in Naples. I cover the whole west coast of Florida, from Tallahassee to Marco Island out to Lakeland.
Wow.
Okay, so it's a pretty good sized territory. But learning to, and it's something you don't have to do in a structured environment like an office or a shop. You go to work at 8 o'clock, you're off at 5, I have lunch from 11 to 12, whatever, right? And during this time frame, I've got duties I have to do. You have to kind of create some type of drive yourself when you're by yourself, right? And that, you may think you're ready for that, and I thought I was, but it especially during COVID, when we weren't really out there on the road that much, and you're making phone calls, and that is probably one of the things that I continue to work on within myself, is to try to wake up every day and have that 200% drive to get out there and knock on doors and introduce myself and or I could just stay home and just do paperwork. And, you have to find that drive every day to be able to be successful. So I work on that daily. I try to, give myself daily goals, which turn into weekly goals, which turn into my monthly goals, and then obviously yearly. So if I have these goals in front of me, it's easier for me to hit these goals that are short term versus having just, okay, I'm going to sell 30 machines this year. And then, okay, so what am I doing today to be able to sell
30 machines this year? Yeah.
So you have to break that down. And again, it's something I've realized, and I think this is advice for anybody in any position, is that, people are arrogant naturally. They're always going to be a little bit, I want to be the best. I think I'm the best at things. But I have found in my just my employment history that when I surrounded myself with people that were smarter than me, and I could pull from that. So when I was a machinist, I was with the best machinists in the world. When I was programming, it wasn't because I knew how to program. It's because I surrounded myself with people that were awesome programmers. We're talking matrix guys, guys that were able to look at a part and not see the part, but they see the code instead, right?
Like Neo.
Like Neo in the Matrix. They're seeing code. So I drew from that as much as I could. I'm not going to mention their names. There's one or two guys at Ariel that were fantastic at it, and they're amazing machinists, the best I've ever worked at in my life. And same thing when I got into leadership roles. These guys that were great supervisors, great managers, people loved them, right? Why? What are you doing every day in your role? As sometimes you still got to fire people. You got to write them up. You got to do that crap part of the job, but they still loved you. How did you do that, right? So same thing with sales. put yourself with people that are just great at what they do. They're successful salespeople. They, what are they doing daily to be able to be that way, right? I'm not just going to jump into this role and be natural at it. Nobody goes into a job and they're perfect at it from day one. You gotta pull from those that are successful around you. So I've tried to do that, and I do that today. And I've got a great team in Florida. Got a great, my manager's fantastic. He's one of the best guys I've ever worked with in my whole career. And because of that, our team is just, we meld. Usually there's competition, especially in sales, you would think, right? There's not.
So those egos come into play sometimes.
That we don't have that down here. And I'm not trying to say that to be arrogant. I'm just not. We're all friends. We help each other. If I get a call and I can help this guy, or if he's on the road and he needs something from me, he'll call me. Hey, can you email? We just help each other, right? It's, it doesn't matter if I do better or he does better. As a team, at the end of the day, for us, that's what matters, right? So that transition, getting back to your original question,
I really like where it's gone off to. To be honest, I've enjoyed this very much.
Yeah, it was I was unsure. I'm learning a lot. Again, COVID was a little bit of a bump in the road halfway through, but we got through it. Mazak got through it without getting rid of anybody. In fact, we looked for more people, and that's what I love about strong businesses.
Kudos to you guys.
Yeah, and something you had just mentioned was, I think you were talking about how something about the the machining world and staying confident in it. I think it's something you said. You don't have to be confident in the business you're at, but you could be confident in your role as a machinist. Just because the business I'm working at is not doing well, for whatever reason, your job as a machinist, though, you can go anywhere. I know everybody hiring in this country. Everybody's hiring. It's amazing how many people are struggling to find machinists right now. So yeah, you may be in Wisconsin or you may be in Michigan or whatever. I'm just using this for examples, and things aren't going well, and you're just not happy with your company. You got to take that jump sometimes, and it's tough. It's tough moving away from family. It's tough going to a new place. But there are great places out there to work. There really are. So
yeah, that's great advice. I mean, it's something I did as well, and I have no lack of love for the companies I worked for as a machinist. But much like yourself, a piece of evolution must be that we expand who we are. Yeah. And you, I think, said it best when you were talking about surrounding yourself with wonderful people. And I think maybe Steve Jobs is quoted most often for surrounding yourself with people smarter. Never be the smartest person. Was it Reagan before that?
Yeah, it was Reagan.
Man, I got that all wrong. So
It's okay.
Surrounding yourself, many of us know how important that is, but oftentimes that's a hit on our ego as well, right? To walk into a room and want to be, I'm going to use the word dumbest, but least sophisticated, less educated, whatever it might be, where there's just so much to learn. I've always found if you're the smartest person in the room, walk out of that room, unless they really need you. You can stay for a little bit, but for the most part, we want to be that type of person. So you said it best, and that to me is great advice.
Yeah. Listen, as a machinist, we're kind of, if you go into an old shop and the guy's there 30 years, he's got his pack of cigarettes and his 6-inch scale in his pocket. You know who I'm talking about. It's that guy that knows it all. And they hire a new employee and he comes in thinking he knows everything. He's not going to get anything from that guy. Nothing. He's not going to share any information with you and make you better. But if you go in a little humble and you ask for help and you try to understand what they're doing there and you understand what can I pull from this guy, more oftentimes than not, once you get through that crusty layer of that 35-year-old machinist, he is going to be the greatest asset to you, and he's going to help you more than anybody. And those are the guys you're going to remember 30 years later when you're in that position on how that guy helped you. I can still picture in my mind the guys that helped me.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
And I can picture him now, his knee up on the machine, he's got a sugar and a cup of coffee, and he complained all the time, but he was a great machinist, and he always helped me because I asked him for help.
Do we work with the same guys?
They are the same people. It doesn't matter where you go, they're the same people, right? And I love that world. I do. I love the people. I love the world. This has been, I haven't looked back once in my 20-plus years of doing this and looked back and said, man, I really wish I would have done something different.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk to you a little bit about work-life balance because I think both of us value that. You mentioned moving to a place that created a lifestyle you wanted. I know that's why I did it as well. But there's a lot of conversations out there, and you kind of brought it up with some people being unhappy in a job and expanding and going other places and this and that. But there's definitely a conversation of how do you create a work-life balance? Because me personally, now that I'm working from home more, and you see me in airplanes all the time, and most of the audience does as well. We know I travel as well. How I find I work more when I don't have that 8 to 5 or that 7 to 4 or whatever it might be, and I was the dedicated hours, clock in, clock out. I'm working before time, after time, during time. Sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and shoot an email because something came to my brain. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
How do you create a work-life balance in your personal life?
So right now, in the way I live, it's pretty easy. And the reason I say that is I have 2 grown boys. They're both they were both in the Navy at one time. My youngest just came home from Japan. He spent 5 years over there in a carrier. He's now back home. He's in an apprenticeship program to be a machinist right now.
No
so
kidding.
He's learning how to be a machinist.
You know what they say about apples and trees, right?
Well, absolutely. Well, it was kind of my guidance to him and we'll get into it a little bit later on paths. When I talk about paths, but my oldest is still in the Navy, and my wife and I have been married for 27 years. We love each other to death.
Congratulations.
But she's okay with me being gone. Right. It doesn't matter. If I have to spend a couple nights in a hotel, if I'm traveling all the time, right. She's okay with it. She gets the couch to herself at night. She got a glass of wine. She's got the bed to herself with the puppy. I can be gone, right? It's not a big deal. At the end of the day, I love what I do. And I don't understand, this I guess attitude in some people's minds of, work is work. And, you shouldn't give any extra to it. You shouldn't let them abuse. And I get that part of it. You shouldn't, right? But it's okay to like work. And some people have forgotten that. It's part of our lives. It's our livelihood. We have to work unless we're born with, a lot of money. This is our job that we do to make a career. And if you find what you love to do, work-life balance kind of works itself out. At the end of the day, I love helping people. And I love helping my customers. So if I have a customer call me at 9 o'clock at night, and, I'll take it. It's not a big deal for me, I don't feel, what's different is I'm helping this customer, whatever problem he has, a machine's down or something's going on. And if I can help him get things going again, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I feel good as soon as I go to bed. Versus when I was a manager and I got that 9 o'clock call, that was usually bad.
Yeah.
Right. And so now I get this call, something bad is happening, and now I'm up all night thinking about it, and I'm worrying, and I got to get ready for the next. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic. Even though I may get bad news from my customer, I'm helping them solve a problem, and now I have this. To me, it's a little bit different, but I love what I do, and trying to balance out the time on the road versus being time at home. It's just not a big deal for me. If I have to be gone for 2 weeks, then I'm gone for 2 weeks. It is what it is. Like I said, my wife does not care. She's okay with it. So
she encourages it. It sounds like maybe sometimes.
Well, who doesn't like making more money, right?
Get out on the road.
Yeah,
give me my private time.
Did you sell anything today? Let's go. Come on, make calls, all right? And I love her for it, and she gives me drive, And but we make sure we take the time with each other, especially on the weekends. Nobody buys a machine on the weekend. It just doesn't happen very often. So we make sure we spend enough time on the weekends together and take trips because we like to travel and have that time that we need to have to maintain the relationship that we do have. So
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful answer. And again, wow, coincidentally, again, a lot of
That's your wife,
similarities.
right?
Yes.
Okay,
My wife is actually in the audience right now and listening to us and smiling every time Don talks about the travel side of things and kind of the relationship side. There's 2 more questions I want to ask you, a little bit different from each other, but they also kind of go together before we start moving into the games. I know the audience like to move into the games as well. I want to give a moment to kind of highlight Mazak because one of the questions I ask people regularly is, can you share a recent technological advancement in manufacturing that you find fascinating or revolutionary? So I would love to hear something that Mazak has done recently, because I was at EMO not too long ago and walked through the Mazak booth, and I couldn't even absorb half of it because there's so much good things going on there, right? So that's one question I want to ask you. And the reason I'm going to ask you both at the same time, and then I'll re-ask the second one, is just to prepare you. And the second one I want to ask you is, Who do you admire in the manufacturing world and why? You've thrown out a couple of names earlier.
Yep.
Your lead sales guy that's helped you kind of adapt to your transition. So that'll be my second part of the question, give you time to think about it. But I also want to know about a technological advancement through Mazak that you think is a game-changing piece.
There are so. I just came back from Japan. I was over there with Mazak and some of our customers.
Thank you for that gift, by the way, Don. What an incredible,
that's
extraordinary, and rare gift.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I thought about you when I was over there, and I picked it up for you. So
Thank you.
absolutely are welcome. There's so much going on. It cuts at different axes. It has a certain amount of power to it based on the torque and the horsepower and that's never really going to change. What's going to change is obviously your inserts and how those are made and different angles of those cuts. But really, when we start looking at advancement today in the CNC world, you're starting to look at more of probably the AI side of it. Okay, AI is big these days. There's some talk that's pro and some that's con. Yeah, if we're going to get taken over by Terminators, that's probably a bad thing.
Will Smith will show up. I'm sure he'll take care of us.
The other side of it is that AI is a helpful tool. I don't think it's going to take anybody's job, just like robots aren't taking people's jobs. They're helping people do their jobs, right? So the AI side of it's very fascinating. There's some things I saw when I was in Japan that I'm not going to get into because it's not here yet, okay? But it blew me away, and it takes a lot to blow me away. I'm being part of Mazak. I think one of the greatest tools that we have on our machines is Mazak. And sometimes it's not. There's a time and place for Mazak. It's not always needed, but there are times that it's a fantastic tool to have. And part of the Mazak side on some of our more advanced controllers like our Smooth AI and our Smooth G controls. The ability to import 3D models has always fascinated me, and not enough people do it, right? And getting to that, we're almost to that point where, importing that model and having all your tool described and everything in the controller, and then just hitting a button and your program just spits out. We're like 98% there. I would say almost 100% there. It is absolutely crazy on what we can now accomplish through just the controller. Does this always work in like a very streamlined, large manufacturing company where seconds matter? Maybe Mazak isn't the right way to program that specific part, and there's a faster way where I can pick up 5 seconds on a tool path, on every part. And I understand that, but if I'm a job shop and I'm running a bunch of different parts, I don't want to have to keep running into my office, creating a profile, creating a program through my CAM system, and spitting that program out, and buying the post for it. I can just write in Mazak, and I haven't written Mazak in probably 20 years. You give me a fairly basic part, let's say a lathe part. If you're facing it, OD cutting it, drilling it, grooving it, boring it, I can still write it today in probably about 10 minutes. It's that fast. Not to say it always is, but I think the advancement or the technology we have in our controllers is just truly amazes me. And then we're talking about the maintenance side of it, like augmented reality. I'm starting to see that come around. We've showcased it at Discover, we've showcased it at IMTS a year and a half ago, and the ability for people, especially companies that have trained maintenance people, multi-craft mechanics, being able to use an augmented reality type virtual system, with glasses or your VR, and not VR, I guess it'd be your glasses, and being able to work on something and tear it apart as you're looking and doing the same thing with what you're seeing.
It's just brilliant.
Completely, we're there. This is not the future. This is not, we're
this
there
is now.
It's now. And probably the next thing is again, I was at Discover here recently, and just some of the automation we do, it just amazes me. We've got a great automation department up in Kentucky. We have automation applied right there in our manufacturing facility in Kentucky. You can see it firsthand being used. But and we try as a company to be the forefront of all technology. We've got just a great team all over the world. We've got teams all over the world. We just opened up our new tech center in Orlando.
Congratulations.
It's been open a couple of years now. We use that for training, free training to our customers. Come up and take training whenever you need to. And it's just what we're able to do, I think, is pretty amazing, So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if I may add to that, I actually had a guest in here, which is the episode before you, episode 4, a gentleman by the name of Deco, who's the CEO of Crado Structures, and he loves the Mazatrol on his Mazak machine. In fact, he has 2 more on order that are coming in real soon.
Good for him.
And almost every customer that I've filmed through MTD with you guys brings that up, brings up the Mazatrol. So yeah, I agree with you.
Listen, there's going to be people that argue against it, and I understand. There was machines that I ran.
There's going to be people argue about everything.
Well, there are applications where it may not be the best idea to use Mazatrol. A full 5-axis contouring cut, no, don't use it. Use a CAD
But
system.
understanding that is important.
Understanding, yeah, there's still this misconception, I hear it once in a while. Well, Mazatrol, you can't put G-code in the controller. I'm like, listen, guys, this is not the 80s. Come on. Yes, you can. Yeah, they're capable of doing both. You want to use, a G-code, CAN cycles, macro programming, import it from your CAM system, whatever. You can do all that stuff still, but also have the tool of Mazatrol if and when you need it. So
this is Shop Rescue.
Hi, I'm Matt Schron. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of Juergens Inc., worldwide work loading and fixturing company. Juergens really helps small manufacturing shops because typically what you're seeing in small manufacturing shops today is they have high mix, low volume production. So what we can really help them do is on setup time reduction. I think this is more than just about the manufacturing community. It's trying to get people outside the manufacturing community aware of what's going on as well too. And I'm hoping that people recognize the value that manufacturing provides for the U.S. I mean, there's so many small manufacturing shops that start in garages and grow out of it. And I think we can really help support those people and the manufacturing community and outside the manufacturing community as well for the long term.
Yeah, I also, on the addition to the automation side of things, I've got to spend a lot of time with your optonics side as well, the Mazak
absolutely.
optonics.
Yeah.
And the cell that they had set up for FabTech, and the one I got to go into the outside of Chicago and see it being constructed for FabTech.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not tough to fathom because much like yourself, we see a lot, and it's tough to blow our minds, but at the same time, thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
Like thoroughly impressed seeing what this Neo machine could do on its own cutting, and then additionally adding these pallet change systems with these robotics to not to load and unload the machine, load and unload the parts, stack them as necessary. And I know in Kentucky you're doing all of that, and then in Japan multiply it by 1,000 at that point. I've been to Japan as well. So leads me into the last question. I hope you've had time to think about it as well. Which is, who do you admire in the manufacturing world and why?
So I'm not going to come off with just one person. That's not a good answer because that changes throughout your life. People you admire as you age, as you mature, as you meet new people, that's going to change. I'm going to go back to what I talked about before. The people that knew more than me, the people that I was able to draw information from to make me better. Okay, yeah, I could say Elon because he's amazing. Jeff Bezos, he's got a, Blue Origin, I've been there. A very good friend of mine's a director out there, Roy. He used to work for me in Savannah, and he is now, running their shop. He's just a great kid, right? All those guys, it's amazing what they're doing. Does that directly affect how I do my daily tasks? No, not really, right? But those guys that I grew up with and throughout my careers, and throughout my different jobs and the people that I drew from, those are the people that I use every day. So those are the people I admire. And I still to this day respect them. And I still today think about our conversations and try to apply what I've learned from them. Because I can take anything that I've learned in any job and apply it to sales. Even though I'm not in a management position, I can still use those skills in my job. I'm not a machinist anymore, but I can still use those skills in my job. So all of that still applies. And that gets to I guess, I don't know if you're leading to another one, but I really want to talk about, I think one of the questions we had talked about is, where's manufacturing today? Or what is a downfall? What is an issue in manufacturing? And obviously just like, or really a lot of industries is people, and what do people not know about manufacturing? What's a misconception? And I'd like to point on that. I'm an advisory board for a couple of the different schools here in Florida for, trying to get people into these seats, and learning machining.
Thank you for doing that.
Well, I went to it. It benefited me. And, there are so many jobs, great jobs out there, right? And they just can't find the right people. And you don't need to have a machining background to be a machinist. There's a lot of these companies that are bringing you in. Listen, if you can come to work on time,
If you're teachable,
you know, if you understand a little bit of, you know, mechanically inclined, they can teach you to run a machine, right? But being a machinist doesn't mean you're going to be a machinist for 30, 40 years. There's so many different paths. And I think I talked about it a little bit. There's that technical path of, you know, applications, programming, setups, you know, understanding that side of it, right? The leadership side of it, right? So now you're getting into supervision, you're getting into management, flow, you know, understanding the metrics and machining, you know, how much does it cost to run this part versus what I'm making, and how do I save time, you know, all that side of it, you know, managing people. And then there's obviously the machining side of it. You can be a machinist for 30 years, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can make a very good career out of it. And then there's this other branch that you can get into, all these different, you know, roles, obviously, with sales being one of them, you know. And so when people get into this career, and there's something I had to, you know, I'm teaching my son, is that, yeah, you're learning to be a machinist, but this isn't who you are 30 years from now. Look at me. You know, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing right now, but it led me on this journey and through this path of so many adventures. I know so many people in this industry. Even though we're a big industry, it's kind of a small industry.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So anyways, yeah, that's that. So to answer your question, every time I learn from somebody, I remember that person. Those are the people that I admire the most. And I mean that. I'm not just saying it to say it. Those are the people I think about, and that admiration comes to my forefront of my mind every day. So.
Really a great answer. I find that on a daily basis, we all have the opportunity to both be a student and a teacher.
Yep.
And I think if we associate or accept this, that the people around us either want to learn from us or that we can learn something from them, it's this moment of opportunity and gratitude that we can just have on a daily basis. So much like yourself, again, I do also think about the people who help me become a better version of myself, that teach me something new. So really a great answer. You ready to play some games?
Sure, let's try it.
All right.
We'll see. I haven't thought of any lies yet, but we'll see if I can BS it.
I'll talk slowly to the audience real quick so you can think of a couple. Yeah. Well, we know you're such an honest man. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, open book, man. It's an open book.
Transparent, authentic. I like it. So the first game we're going to play today is called Two Truths and a Lie. Most of you know how this works. But if you don't, Don's going to tell me a couple of truths and a lie, and I have to guess which one is the lie. So I don't think I've ever won this game, honestly. I don't. Maybe I can't read people. I don't know what the gift and a curse. I don't know. We're going to try it today. Maybe Don is such a bad liar that I'll actually get it right. The second game we're going to play is the Would You Rather game. So it's this kind of fun concept of would you rather have one thing or another thing, and they kind of contradict each other. I'll give you an example. Don and I won't use it, but you can see that it's coming soon. Is would you rather work only with outdated equipment or have the latest technology but with frequent malfunctions? Now, I'll let you answer that one on your own because we're not going to answer that one today. But Don's going to answer 3 of those for us. He's going to tell us why. So a little bit of discussionable points that are a bit of fun. So did I ask those questions or explain that long-winded enough to give you time to think of a lie?
Yeah, I think we can come up with something.
Right. 2 truths and a lie, buddy. I'm ready.
Yeah, 2 truths and a lie. So when I was 16 years old, I just got back from church camp, and I was out riding my dirt bike with some friends in a local town, a neighboring town, Fredericktown, Ohio, and this what they called Henry's Pit, and 5 miles an hour. That's as fast as I was going, but I had my buddy on the back, and he kind of did a little jiggle, and I lost control in the dirt and fell into a ditch, caught my leg into the forks of the bike, and had a pretty vicious compound fracture that I ended up with 12 screws, 2 plates, and multiple surgeries. And 2 years later, I joined the military with no problems. So that's one.
If that's a lie, that is the most in-depth lie I've ever heard on this show.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard not to. Yeah, absolutely. Second one was, last week. Or actually, I guess what's today? So it'd been 2 weeks ago. Me and my wife were in Naples and having dinner. You know, my son was visiting from Virginia, and my other son was here. We were on Fifth Avenue. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Naples, but that's a pretty popular place to be at. And we were sitting next to Bob Seger and his wife. So I got to talk to him a little bit, not to be rude or anything. Bob Seger was my dad's. Like, he idolized. He went to every concert. He met him, one time at a gas station, and he told me the story of having beers with him. And so I had to share that story with him that I remembered. Obviously, he didn't say anything about remembering it or anything, but, got some selfies with him. And so that's kind of my one celebrity, meetup was him.
If that ends up being true, we're switching out our bourbon toast today to the Bob Seger brand.
Oh, you got a Bob Seger brand?
We do, yes.
Oh,
so
okay. Awesome.
if that ends up being true, we're switching.
No, that's awesome. And I guess the third one would be, the first time I went to Japan, I was a customer. I went with our general manager out of Atlanta, and it was my first time going to a different country, really, other than Canada. That was my Navy career, was Canada. So went over there, and at that time, I was just truly amazed with how Mazak operated as a company. And that trip probably was 75% of the decision on why I took this role. Was because I got to understand them not from just from a machine tool aspect of it, but from from a company itself and how they operated, how they respected people, how they respected customers, how they treated people. And that made such an impression on me that when that came time for me to decide on whether I would take this role or not, that played a big part in my decision. So there you go, man.
That one can't be a lie. It's either one or two. It can't be. I'm going with number one. I think you got the lie out of the way first, so you could be honest with me the rest of the time.
Yeah, you think so? Yeah. So I'm going to show you my scar after this. That one is not a lie.
Oh, it's the Bob Seger one then.
Bob Seger is a lie. Yeah.
We're not switching bourbon today.
No switch.
I should have just pulled up like one of your social media profiles. You definitely would have posted those those selfies of him.
Maybe not on LinkedIn, but maybe Facebook or something for the family, right? So
yeah. Well, again, I failed. What's new? I always fail at this game. I'm the worst.
Well, sales guys are good at, we can, kind of the top of them. I don't know. Not say lie, but I guess we just did lie. So go ahead.
All right, now we're going to play the Would You Rather game.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm going to find a couple of fun ones here. All right, so first one. Would you rather deal with unpredictable supply chain issues or predictable but very tight deadlines?
I think predictable. You can, when making decisions, you have to plan off of data. You cannot make decisions off of bad data or no data. So unpredictable, that's pretty much no data, right? So in order to meet your deadlines, build a schedule, satisfy your customers, I can work with predictable with who doesn't have a tight deadline these days with anything, So I think that's the route I would definitely go. Because I can work with that. I can work with that one or two times or whatever the percentage may be on even though it's tight, maybe they're late a little bit. That's manageable. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
Give me reliable all day, every day. I don't care what those deadlines
That's
are like.
Exactly
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Give me something I can rely upon.
Absolutely.
In pretty much every aspect of my life.
Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. In my life too, because obviously, with what we do with, our suppliers and our delivery of machines, and, that's very important, to have a good foundation on what you can make a decision on how you answer that. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2.
Yep.
Would you rather have advanced robotics with occasional technical issues or reliable basic machinery that requires more manual intervention?
That is a great question. That you should have sent me that one so I can think about it. But no, that's really. I think that's going to depend. That really is going to depend. Every shop is going to be different than the shop next door, right? These large manufacturing companies that are making thousands of parts, and that automation, even though on that one machine or that one robot there may be a hiccup every now and then, it doesn't really affect, what their outcome is at the end of the month, at the end of the year, whatever. So in that situation, yeah, the robot. But let's say it's a one machine shop, right? That's going to cause some havoc, and the dependability that's where it's going to be more important, right? So Again, that's a very dynamic question, and where it's situational, depending on how they're set up, how their production works, what their process looks like. That could go either way. So.
So a great answer though, really, really thorough, and you're right. The fact that this is kind of as a game, it's off the cuff.
Yep.
You nailed it in my opinion, and I love the transparency and authenticity of something that's legitimately in the moment kind of an answer.
Yeah.
So thank you
Appreciate
for that. The last one's not quite as technical as the rest, but it's also kind of fun. It's something I think we talk about a lot, especially since a lot of us started working from home more often. Is would you rather have long but fewer work days or shorter but more frequent work days?
If I was in the shop working, so let's say I was a machinist, I think the longer days with fewer work days is perfect. Again, I think I mentioned early in our conversation, for 5 years, I worked 3 days a week. I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday at night, and I had 4 days off, and I loved it. It was fantastic, right? You work 36, you got paid for 40. And then I was home all week with my kids. In that case, it is perfect. In an office role, it's going to go back to what you're able to do and how your job works. You have to be with customers every day. My wife works for the county, and she may like to have longer hours but shorter days, but then you got to be able to provide for that customer. So on that day you're not there, that situation doesn't really work. In my role now, I don't care if it's a long day or a long week, but if I'm doing what I have to do and I'm providing for my customers and they're happy, that's really all I care about. It doesn't affect me at a personal, professional, or emotional or physical level at all. It's just that's what I do, and I enjoy it so much that I don't worry. I don't look at a clock. I just don't do it.
Yeah, and I think this kind of plays off of you as well, which is I think when we're feeling productive, when we're having productive work, it could be a 3-hour day or it could be a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
If we're doing the things we need to do, because there's some people out there that work their butts off and get nothing done.
Absolutely.
And some people who are working smarter over harder, right?
There are people that work harder to not do stuff. They used to work for me. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
I've had to have conversations with those guys. So, anyways.
All right, that is the end of the show for the most part. We are going to do a celebratory cheers. We have a bourbon, a very nice bourbon picked out. If my buddy Ben could slide those on over here. We love to honor our guests who decide to join us on the show. Ben's a good friend of mine, always dresses well, smooth operator. Don't make me sing to you again today because I will do it. Smooth. Okay, not doing it. All right, so this is for you, Don. Thank you for making the time to be on the Gunn Show. You are certainly a VIP.
I appreciate it.
Definitely goes along with your title. A professional in all aspect, also very fun, educational, and you're the type of person that helps us connect to the audience outside of manufacturing because you can relate and you're relatable. So thank you for being here. We certainly appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed this. This is a great venue, and a great, what you're doing is awesome. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Do you have any specific toast you'd like to do today?
Not necessarily,
Kampai?
Kampai, yeah, absolutely. Kampai 2024. Let's see what we do.
2024. Thank you,
So,
my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching and or listening. We appreciate you as well. Thank you to our sponsors, EBITDA Growth Systems, AMT, IMTS. We absolutely appreciate you. And MTDCNC, thank you for believing in everything across the world and helping us bring attention to manufacturing, because the U.S., although we're here and we're focused on U.S. manufacturing, we're not the only country that needs more people in manufacturing. So thank you for helping us be the global channel that allows the world to see what manufacturing is all about. Don, here's to you, my friend.